Hello, I am your host, Tyler Felix, and this is Past the Parsley. I am a very noble man. I have noble values. What the fuck am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing here. Okay, anyways, packed card, people. We have Stipe versus Francis this fucking weekend, this Saturday. Let's go. We did have one fight fall out, unfortunately, which was T-City versus Volkanovski, which that fight was going to be really, really good. So it kind of sucks that got pulled from the card. Excuse me, I got a burp. There we go. But anyways, that fight got pulled. And then the fight that replaced it, well, it got moved up, but the fight that is going to replace that is Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque. Which, man, that is going to be a banger because Tyron Woodley he looks determined, and I feel like his last 3 losses have really rubbed him like the wrong way, because Tyron went from just being like a really dominant fighter and winning almost all of his fights, like not easily, because it's like a lot of work and it's a lot of patience, but I mean, Tyron never got dominated in his entire career. And then not only does he get dominated once, but it happens 3 times against three different people. But I think he can bounce back here, because if you look at how he lost, it's because he's been grinded out. And the 3 best wrestlers in that weight class, well, I mean, be like, besides Tyron Woodley, because like you would probably have to put him up there, but Usman, Burns, and Colby Covington, and all 3 of those guys were able to take him down and control him, right? And I think that Tyron got exposed, like, in a sense that Usman laid out the game plan on how to beat Tyron, and then Gilbert Burns followed that same exact game plan, and then Colby Covington followed that same exact game plan, because Usman just laid it out perfectly. Like, this is how you beat Tyron Woodley. This fight, though, I see being different, because Vicente, while he does have good wrestling, he's not Tyron Woodley, right? And something that people forgot, right, is that before Tyron fought Usman, he had some of the highest takedown defense in UFC history, right? Tyron Woodley's defensive wrestling was insane. And because he got out-wrestled in his past 3 fights, I feel a lot of people forget that, and like a lot of people are knocking him. And this will flow perfectly into my picks, because one of my picks goes to show the disrespect, right? All right, so my first pick, and my picks this week literally go against all my rules for betting on fights, but these 2 odds were so good that I had to pick fighters, which most of the time I don't like to pick who will win and then who will lose and all this. Most of the time I like to pick how the fight's finished and if it'll go past a certain point, because that's where I won most of my money, is betting on that type of shit, right? But going through these odds, I saw that Tyron Woodley is a plus 205 dog. So my first pick is Tyron Woodley plus 205. I saw that and I went back and forth. I didn't really want to make this pick like at first, but going through the entire card, this is such a great value pick, because how Woodley has been beaten in his last 3 fights is not how Vicente Luque fights, right? So to have him as such a massive underdog is just like a disrespect. I mean, Tyron Woodley's a former champion. I mean, Tyron Woodley was the best in this weight class for a while. And people forget that. And with a lot of these odds, you see that they're swayed by recency bias. That Tyron Woodley, all of the casuals, they probably didn't see his, his like championship run. That they probably just saw him get out wrestled by Usman and Burns and fucking Colby. So people see Vicente, who is on a rise. I'm actually going to click on Vicente real quick here, because I forgot who his last fight was. Oh, yes, Randy Brown, of course. Oh, yeah, and then Nico Price. So Vicente is on the up, while Tyron Woodley, if you look at the records, is on the down. But I don't think so, right? Because Tyron Woodley, in the pre-fight press conference and throughout all the media, I really love his mindset, right? He I feel like there was a lot of distractions. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Tyron Woodley has lost his last 3 fights, and that was after he put out his rap album, right? So since he put that out, he is 0-3. So just fucking think about that, people. And I don't think that's a coincidence. He says that it's not, man. But I mean, he was rapping, he was doing movies, he was the host of TMZ, like he was doing all this shit. And I don't know, it felt like he was probably being distracted, right? And the last fight, against Colby, he completely, got rid of all that shit and came back really strong. But Colby Covington, I think, is just a bad matchup, and I don't think there's really much that Tyron could have done as far as preparation to, I don't know, to win that fight. I feel like Colby stylistically outmatches him just because Colby's wrestling is so fucking good. So, which, speaking of that, not to go on a fucking tangent here, but Colby Covington, his wrestling is so fucking good. And then Usman, his wrestling is so good. And I was so ready to see who was going to be, the better wrestler. And then they fought, and nobody went for a takedown. It's oh my God. Which I can assume why, right? Because both guys have respect for the other man's wrestling. So both guys knew that wrestling is kind of wasn't their best option to win, right? So I could see why they didn't do it. But anyways, Colby is one of the best wrestlers in this entire weight class, in the entire UFC, really. I mean, Usman and Colby are 2 of the best wrestlers in the entire fucking UFC. So, and I mean, just the fact that they grinded out Tyron Woodley, who has some of the best takedown defense in UFC history. And that's not me just hyping him up. That's a statistical fact. Before Usman, he had some of the best statistical takedown defense in the history of the UFC. Nobody could take this man down. But Usman did, and Colby did, and Burns did. But anyways, the reason why I picked Tyron is because Vicente, I see him trying to outbox Tyron Woodley. And that is one thing that Tyron has never been beaten in. No one has outboxed Tyron Woodley, right? You have to go all the way back to Nate Marquardt, maybe, because His loss to Shields, that was bullshit. He definitely won that. Rory, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure Rory got a takedown really late, and that's what sealed it. But I don't remember Rory outstriking Tyron. But I could be completely wrong there because I haven't seen this fight in a while. That fight was in 2014. So, but off the top of my dome, I don't recall just fucking Rory just outstriking him. And I mean, this is a man that went toe to toe with Stephen Thompson. Like, this is a man that nullified Darren Till, like, right? And only striking. Like, it's not like he was like, you know, like grinding them. It's like, no. He was outstriking Stephen Thompson, Darren Till. He knocked out Robbie Lawler, right? So it's like, Tyron Woodley's boxing is fucking phenomenal. And he's so fast, and he's so strong, and he's so technical too, right? He's like OCD, right? Where he analyzes these fucking guys like crazy, to like where he could pick up these like patterns because he watches so much tape that he could sense patterns, and like he can see shit that other guys can't. And that's why I think Vicente has a very, 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 very tough fight here, and he's a massive favorite. I don't have the odds for him to win right in front of me, but if I recall, it was -3 something. It was in the 300s, which is like, bro, could you not? Like, are you fucking kidding me? That is insane. So that is the reason why I broke my rule this week. I mean, now, do I think that Tyron is going to win this like 100%? Certainly no. I mean, because Vicente is a fucking beast, but those odds are ridiculous. It's such a great value bet, and in this fight, I'm leaning Tyron Woodley because Vicente's route to beating Tyron would be pressuring him with strikes, getting his back up against the cage, throwing lots of volume, right? And I think that's Vicente's game plan. I mean, like, I don't know, but I mean, you just look at how both guys fight, and that is Vicente's best route, right? Where he needs to throw a lot of punches with lots of volume, right? So, I mean, I pretty much just said the same thing twice. If you're throwing a lot of volume and a lot of punches, it's the same shit. But anyways, so Vicente's best path to victory, I think Tyron Woodley can nullify him. And like, I'm not sure if I'm putting this right, but Vicente's best path is to plot forward and to throw volume. And then if he does that, Tyron Woodley is amazing at countering guys and controlling the pace with defense, which is such a hard thing to do, to control the pace with defense. But when he was the champion, that's what he did. Which a lot of people gave him shit because he was quote unquote boring. I never thought he was that boring. He's just a very smart fighter. He's a very safe fighter. He doesn't take a ton of risks. So I like Tyron here, and I think the odds are very skewed because Tyron has been beat up kind of badly in his past 3 fights. And Vicente is on the fucking rise. So everyone's like, Vicente, and completely dissing Tyron. Like, let's not forget, people, 2 years, that's it. 2 years ago, that's it. He was the champion. Like, it's only been 2 years, people. I mean, this guy was the king of this weight class, and it's only been 2 fucking years. And, like, everyone's just acting like he should just stop fighting, and he's like a dog shit fighter now. And it's like, what? Come on, people, put some respect on fucking Tyron's name. And speaking of putting respect on fucking someone's name, comes my next bet. Vegas has the audacity. Well, I mean, they set lines based off of the bets that like come in, right? They set that first line, and then it sways based off of the bets. So it's not necessarily Vegas, but they have Stipe as the underdog, right? He is minus 102, and Francis is minus 120, which is fucking crazy. It's like, what? Like, which is why. Oh, yeah. So I should probably say my second bet is Stipe minus 102, because how the fuck are you going to have Stipe as the underdog when, hello, people, I know Francis has been on a tear. He looks very, very scary. But you know when else he looked fucking scary? Before he fought Stipe the first time. And what? Like, Francis just suddenly learned how to fucking wrestle? I highly doubt it, people. I highly doubt it. So this fight is going to go one of two ways. Francis is going to get a knockout quick, or Stipe is going to wrestle fuck him the entire fight. And that's exactly what happened in the first fight. And I don't see this fight going any differently. Besides Francis cracking him. Like, that's the only thing. That if Stipe could get out of that first round, then it's his fight. It is his fight all the fucking way. Right? But yeah, I don't see why Francis is the favorite here. Besides recency bias and all these fucking casuals. They're just like, oh, Francis is a beast, knocks out everybody, so he's gonna knock out Stipe too. But it's like, people, like, you don't become the greatest heavyweight in UFC history by fighting stupidly, right? And there was a little part of me coming into this fight week that thought Stipe was kind of not taking Francis seriously, like, just because he just kind of had this tone like, oh, I whooped this dude's ass the first time and I'm gonna do it twice, which is like, that's a good mindset. But he also needs to realize that he barely made it out of that first round, and then once he did, it was fine, right? But that first round was very, very close, where Francis was millimeters from knocking Stipe's fucking head into the front row, right? So if Stipe goes in there just like, oh, I'm fucking gonna whoop this fucking dude's ass, right? It's like, I see him that he could potentially get sloppy, and then Francis can like crack him. But what made me seal Stipe here is that Stipe was just saying like how dangerous Francis was, and he wants my belt, and I know that, and he's the young, hungry guy that's fucking trying to rip my goddamn head off, and I'm not going to let him. And hearing that like gave me kind of peace, right? Because just like, okay, Stipe is taking him seriously, like, awesome. Like, fucking great, man. And yeah, so Stipe as the dog here, I mean, people really, anytime any champion is like an underdog, that is a good bet. That is a good bet, especially when you're talking about these guys have already fought. It would be different if they didn't fight. I could see Francis being the slight favorite just because he's a scary guy and he has a lot of knockouts, and he's the most powerful puncher in UFC history. And like, I was about to say combat sports history, but I mean, I'm sure fucking Mike Tyson probably hit harder than like Francis, but so I could see in that first fight Francis being the slight favorite, but they already fought, and Stipe, that first round was very close. The last four were not. Stipe grinded him. He dominated him, right? And Francis has not shown wrestling at all. He's shown no grappling, because since he lost that fight, he had that terrible Derek Lewis fight, which was weird because everyone thought that was going to be one of the most exciting fights in UFC history, and it turned out to be quite the opposite. It's one of the most boring fights in UFC history. And after he went through that, excuse me, but after he went through that, right, he went on this massive tear where he knocked out a lot of fucking people. Right? I think he got 4 first round KOs or something like that. I'm gonna look real quick. Okay, so Francis has won his last 4 fights, and the longest fight was 1 minute and 11 seconds. Right? But like the thing is that he knocked out Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, and then Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Ugh. Like, the Rozenstruik fight was surprising as fuck, because I thought Jairzinho was going to put up a really good fight because he's a seasoned kickboxer. This dude has over 50 fights, right? So, been there. He's done that. Up until this point, I don't think he's lost a fight in MMA. And Francis just runs across that fucking cage and throws a barrage, and one of them lands, and fight over. Right? So Francis has looked very scary, but he has not showed any improvement in his grappling game, right? Which, I mean, it could be very well that he's improved a lot, but when you're knocking guys out in 45 seconds, 26 seconds, 1 minute and 11 seconds, and 20 seconds, these last 4 fights combined wouldn't even be one round, wouldn't even be one whole round, right? So the problems that we saw him face in the Stipe fight, he hasn't showed in the slightest that he has overcome them. And really, I don't think it's possible for him to overcome that, right? When you have a wrestling deficit, it's the hardest thing in the sport by far to get over, is that wrestling deficit. That if you don't have good wrestling, it doesn't, that you've been doing for a decade, you've been training since like you were a little kid or like a teenager, that if you don't have that and someone else does, you will never catch up to them, ever. Right? That's just how wrestling is. Striking is a little different. You know, you could definitely catch up faster, but wrestling, I mean, it just doesn't happen. Like, I don't see, because what comes to like mind, right, is that I think of Carlos Condit. And Carlos Condit worked on his wrestling so fucking hard, man. This guy would go and train with Olympic wrestlers, right? He was dedicating his life to wrestling because that was his big hole. Is that Condit on the feet was amazing, but that takedown defense just, it like just wasn't there. And that deficit is so far that Condit can never make it up, right? And it didn't matter how hard he fucking trained. It didn't matter how hard he fucking tried. He couldn't make up that gap. So when I see a guy like that, I mean, I highly doubt Francis has closed that gap on fucking Stipe, even in the slightest. Even in the slightest. I don't think so. But Francis is so scary, and he is so powerful. He is the most powerful man in UFC history by far. Maybe Shane Carwin, like that's the only other guy that I could think that could hit you with a 1-inch punch and fucking shut your goddamn lights out. That literally, like, they could hit you with a 50% shot. And it's like, I think back to Carwin when he knocked out Gonzaga. He literally hit him with like a 1-inch punch. He barely wound up. That punch barely traveled any range at all. He just threw it like, but he's so fucking powerful that it put Gonzaga out, right? So that's really the only other guy that I could think of that has comparable power to like Francis, right? To where, right? Because Connor has that touch of death, right? But Francis has that, like, my God, he has like that touch of genocide, man. It'll fucking wipe out your entire family by punching you in the face. It's like, I mean, like, it is insane. It is insane. So at the end of the day, I feel like that's all Francis has, is that insane power. And if Stipe can get through it, then I see the second fight going very similar to the first fight. So that's why I like Stipe here at the minus 102, which is kind of crazy that Stipe is minus 102. He is 2 points off from being an underdog. I mean, excuse me. Well, I mean, he is the dog. He's like the slight dog. But he still doesn't have a plus sign. It's still minus 102. It's not plus 102, right? So, but anyways, those are my first two picks. Tyron Woodley and Stipe. I really like both of those picks. Tyron, I think is on the comeback trail, and he is determined and he's ready. And stylistically, Vicente matches up with him very, very well. So I like Tyron here. And Stipe already whooped Francis' ass like the first time. So I don't see anything Francis can do differently to stop that besides knocking him out, right? So I feel like Francis really only has that puncher's chance because stylistically, Stipe is the better fighter, definitely, right? So Stipe here, great bet. And my third and final bet is the one I was kind of iffy on. These past 3 weeks, there hasn't been a ton of bets that I've really, really liked. Like, as far as overs, I love picking overs, but FanDuel, man, they've been really locking shit down, man. Like, their lines have been perfectly placed to where there hasn't really been anything that stood out that's like, oh, this line doesn't really make sense, so I'm about to go the opposite way, which most of the time that's like what I like doing. But I couldn't find that. But what I did find, which is what I like, is Sean O'Malley, right, versus Thomas Almeida. And for that fight, minus 142 to go over 1.5 rounds. Right? So I really like that because Thomas is a fucking beast. Thomas is a massive dog here. I was on the fence of like picking Thomas, but I don't necessarily think that Thomas matches up with Sean that great, right? I could see Sean really just piecing him up here, but Sean hasn't fought since he blew out his fucking knee and had like that ankle problem, right? Because he blew out his knee and then his ankle's fucked up too. So it's like that whole leg is like fucked. So like we haven't really seen him since. So who knows if he's gonna come back at full strength, if it's gonna take him a little time. I mean, most of the time when guys come back from something like that, they start off slow. So that's what I'm expecting here. I'm expecting out a kind of feeling out process, some point fighting, and if that happens, I mean, which I think it probably will, then this bet will go through because they just need to go over 1.5 rounds. Yeah, I just had to read that real quick, but over 1.5 rounds, people. minus 142. So that is my last bet here. Honestly, none of these are stand out because like most of the time I'll rank them, but I like all of these bets equally. There's not one bet that stands out that I'm like, definitely this one. This is my certain lock. Which most of the time I try to do. But I mean, geez, it took me a half an hour, people, just to go through these. But I feel like it's important though. Like, just so you guys know that there's reasoning like behind these picks. That I'm not just willy-nilly like making these picks, right? Like, I've been watching fights for my entire waking life since I was a little boy. So I built up like a lot of knowledge. So and then I try to tap into that said knowledge. Jesus Christ, I sound like such a fucking douche. But anyways, I try to tap into that so that I can make the most educated bets as possible. So those are my 3 bets, people. I will go through them real quick here. We got Sean O'Malley, Gomez, Almeida, over 1.5 rounds, minus 142. Then we got Tyron Woodley, and he'll beat your ass. I'll beat your ass. Terrible song. Not as good of a fucking rapper as he is a fighter. And I think he's going to bounce back here. Tyron Woodley, plus 205. And Stipe Miocic. Stiopic. Fucking Stiopic, dude. Minus 102. Anytime Stipe is minus 102, fucking give me that shit. I don't even care who the fuck he's fighting. We are talking about the potential GOAT here. The heavyweight GOAT, definitely. But if he beats Francis, and then he goes and faces Jones, and he beats Jones, you're looking at the GOAT. You're looking at the GOAT right there. So, minus 102 is ridiculous. So, that is my last bet. I fucking said it like 10 fucking times. I broke down the 3 main fights because all 3 of my bets were like the 3 main fights. I'm just going to scroll through this card really quickly to see if there's anything that really stands out. You got a lot of prospects that are fighting. You have Beeb's cousin who's fighting, which he's going to be fighting Jared Gordon. No, he's not. Jared Gooden. thought it was Jared Gordon. Like, I was about to say, like, didn't he just fight? Like, what? But yeah, no, it's Jared Gooden. I have no idea who the fuck that is. Oh, that's not what I thought. Why did I think that, like, this guy was gonna be white? I feel like that's racist. I don't know. I just thought a Jared would be. I mean, it doesn't matter, but oh my god, I'm just burying myself right here. Oh, but anyways, there's not a ton of fights. This card is honestly kind of shallow, right? Like, those main 3 fights are really, really good. Outside of that, I mean, you got like a lot of prospects, right? There's a lot of prospects, but I don't know. But like, what this card does have, though, is a lot of great stylistic matchups. So even though there's not a lot of star power, these fights should be bangers, absolute bangers. So that's it. Oh yeah, Miesha Tate like is fucking coming back. What? I saw that and was like, why? Like, why is Miesha Tate coming back? Dude, and like, why does like Miesha Tate and like Ronda and like all that, like, the comment section's just a bunch of fucking perverts. It's like, come on, bro. Like, you don't need to fucking say all this creepy ass shit. It's like, Bro, everybody knows that Misha's hot. Like everybody, like, I mean, like, you don't need to be a creep, bro. Just keep that shit in your fucking head, like the fucking rest of us, dude. Like, oh my god. But anyways, Miesha Tate is coming back, and she's gonna fight the oldest fighter in the fucking UFC currently, Marianne Renault. I had to think about that shit for a second, but yeah. So when I first saw this, like, I was like, "Oh, cool, Tate, like, is back. Let's fucking go." But then I really sat back and thought about it. It's like, wait, why? Like, why though? Like, why? Like, why are you coming back? You're one of the greatest fighters in history for girls. I mean, like, you won, like, the belt in Strikeforce. You won the belt in, like, the fucking UFC. I don't understand why she's coming back. I mean, she said that she wants to win the belt, and she says that her stylistically, she feels like she can beat Nunes. That her style can beat Nunes, and to be completely real, I don't think she can. I don't think she can beat Nunes. I mean, she has the confidence, she has the drive, she has the willpower to definitely beat Nunes, but I don't know if she has that skill set. I mean, Nunes is the GOAT for a fucking reason, man. She is well-rounded as fuck. Like, well-rounded as fuck. Like, it's probably the hardest female puncher in history. Then on top of that, she has great wrestling. Like, amazing wrestling. To where if she can't find her timing, boxing, she'll just take your ass down. Just fucking grind you out. Which, that is a skill set all of the greats have. All of the greats. You look at that GOAT list. Jones, GSP, Stipe, right? DC. All amazing wrestling with good striking too. But then when striking's not going good, you can rely on that fucking takedown, which that's what Nunes has. It's what she's been doing for years, and that is what's let her stay the GOAT. So, I mean, I know that Miesha is a competitor, and the fact she lost to Nunes in the way she did rubs her the wrong way. I mean, I definitely could feel that, and I definitely know that she definitely thinks that, like, she can beat Nunes, and she definitely has that confidence. But it's like, fighting's different, man. You can, like, when Nunes is that much better than you, it doesn't matter, like, the mindset. It doesn't matter, like, your drive or any of that, because she's just bigger, faster, stronger. I mean, what the fuck are you gonna do? So it's like, I would really hate to see Miesha come back and, and suffer, like she blows out her knee, or like some Bisbing shit where she loses a fucking eye. I mean, it's like you're a mom now. Like, you just had 2 kids, which I feel like that's probably it too. That she had 2 kids, and she was just like, oh, I don't think I'm ready to be a full-time mom yet. Like, I'm not done with fighting yet. I still want to fight. I think she tried that out for the past, 3 years, and then she got that itch, and she wants to come back. So, power to her. I hope she can go on a streak, because, I mean, Miesha Tate is one of my favorite my favorite female fighters. She's definitely in my top 3. I mean, she was an amazing champion, man. And, like, before Ronda, she was like the face of, like, that, like, bantamweight class. Like, fucking Miesha Tate was so good. And then that fight with Holly Holm, man, oh, what a fight, dude. That was such a good fight. But anyways, yeah, so I hope Tate could, get some wins and not get hurt or anything like that. I would really hate to see her come back just to lose, or or she comes back and gets hurt. Like, I would really hate to fucking see that. But anyways, I've been fucking rambling for like 40 minutes, people. I think it's just about time for me to end this shit. So, all in all, bet on Tyron Woodley. Bet on fucking Stipe, dude. And, yeah. Thank you, people. I hope this wasn't extremely boring. I've been trying to make them a little, less boring, but then I don't know. Like, I'm just rambling, people. So if you like fight talks, I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying at this point, people. It is the end of the show, the end of the podcast, the end of the day. It's closing time. All right, people, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. Thank you for listening. If you did get to this point, I love you with all my heart. And peace out, doggies. I hope you all have an amazing weekend. Deuces.